previous Archetype-Spotlight covered grapplers, which are like warriors in space, charging, grabbing, and tossing other hulls, and tearing into enemies with powerful short-range weaponry. Well, today we're going to be covering rogues in space. Our inspiration for the rogue archetype comes from the traditional RPG and MMO stealth gameplay. But unlike the majority of these stealth systems, there's no hard line separating a cloaked and revealed state in Ring Runner. Instead, stealth is more of a gradient, ranging from almost entirely invisible to completely visible and everything in between. The only boundary of any kind is when you're able to be targeted. The AI is programmed to respond realistically to your current level of exposure. The foundation of any stealth build is a cloaking system, which constantly works to conceal a ship. Here's a list of things that work against your current stealth levels. Your proximity to an enemy, whether you're in front or behind the enemy, your heat levels, and firing non-stealth weaponry. Your stealth levels are target specific, which means that you can be entirely visible to one enemy and entirely invisible to another. All of the weaponry offered in the stealth node is unique in that it doesn't lower your current level of stealth. For instance, you can fire asp rockets, or stealth bombs, and not become any more visible. You can even call in stealth strikes. Equipping a cloaking device may be enough to get you behind enemy lines, but it won't be enough to fool your opponents in the heat of battle. This is where your subterfuge systems come into play. There are two approaches to remaining unseen: to hide yourself, or to turn your opponent's vision. Rogues have a wealth of decoy and illusion abilities. They're capable of confusing and misdirecting opponents, even in the middle of a dogfight. Just as with the stealth system, AI will respond realistically to decoys. Sometimes they'll be fooled, and sometimes they won't. This depends on the current difficulty setting and the situation in which the decoy is used. Either way, decoys are very useful to a rogue because if the enemy doesn't fall for it, you can take the decoy's place using your holoport ability. You can also turn your decoys into remote bombs and use them as a weapon. Keeping true to traditional rogue gameplay, this archetype's main weapon, the Gemini Array, presents a combo-based system. Gemini Array abilities can be divided into two categories: those that add Gemini beacons and those that consume them. There are also abilities which are simply modified by the current amount of beacons on the target. Gemini beacons you've added to a target are represented by notches on the target's reticule. You can only have a maximum of 4 active beacons, which can be spread across multiple targets. These beacons are typically added with a laser or a trail of beacons. Once the target is loaded with beacons, you can consume them to unleash powerful attacks or disable key systems. For instance, you can fire a salvo of homing missiles. You can also slow your enemies to a crawl with the EPR snare. Or you can bring down their shields and go straight for their hulls. This is a particularly effective way to bring down a shield generator. If grapplers are warriors and these are rogues, then our next Archetype Spotlight will focus on space wizards, the wily casters, which can bend time and space, summon comets, and wreak havoc on their enemies with powerful area of effect attacks.